Curiously, chapter 18 of Revelation makes perfect sense when following chapter 16. It is highly dogmatic. However, chapter 18 describes in essence the result of the Antonine Plague and the eruption of Vesuvius in 172. The simple theme throughout Revelation 18 is that Rome has essentially fallen. The author views the plague and the volcanic eruption as a sign of the end of Rome. Given the amount of dogma in this chapter, I'll skip around a bit. There are two overriding events in this chapter, fire and plague. The fire could be a mention of the eruption of Vesuvius in 172, however, it could also be a mention of Roman burial practices which involve cremation. Due to the Antonine Plague, the amount of dead being burned in Rome would have been tremendous, and for years there would likely be constant fires outside of Rome burning the dead. In verse 11, the merchants of the world lament that no one is buying their cargoes. Besides the fact that people are dying in cities at a phenomenal rate, any merchant would probably want to stay away simply because of the plague. In verse 14, the devastation of Rome is seen as permanent. How a city recovers from losing several 100,000 people, I don't know, but it certainly would have taken a long time. In verse 17, the merchant ships are staying away from Rome. The Antonine Plague killed perhaps as many as 30 to 50% of the population of Rome over a period of about 15 years. And the economy of the Roman Empire simply collapsed. In verse 21, an angel picks up a huge rock and throws it into the sea. This is probably an allusion to the 172 eruption of Vesuvius. It matches very well with the description of the 79 eruption mentioned in chapter 8. This author, in a highly dogmatic way, assumes that the city of Rome will never recover from this plague, and quite honestly, his assumptions are probably not that far off. It is uncertain how much the plague affected Rome, but in the next century, the stability of Rome was exchanged for absolute chaos. Excluding Julius Caesar, there were 18 Roman emperors between 27 BCE and 192 CE. That's an average of about 12 years per emperor. Between 193 CE and 306 CE, there were about 42 Roman emperors. That's an average of less than 2.5 years per emperor. The amount of chaos introduced by the Antonine Plague is unknown, but it does appear that following this plague, the course of the Roman Empire changed drastically. Economically and politically, Rome is only a shadow of its former self. So even though Revelation 18 is highly dogmatic, it also seems to be right on point describing the aftermath of the Antonine Plague.